We live in a world where everything is shared. Every thought, every emotion, every success, our lives are lived on display, one post, one story, one update at a time. And yet, there are some things, three things that should never be shared. Not because we should hide them, but because they lose their power when exposed too early, too often, or to the wrong people. These three secrets are sacred. They are the quiet foundation of strength, character, and peace. There's a certain power that lives in silence, a quiet force that often goes unnoticed in a world obsessed with noise. Everyone wants to be seen, to be validated, to be praised for what they're going to do. But that's the trap. The more we talk about our next move, the less energy we have left to actually make it happen. Silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. It's not the absence of confidence, it's the presence of discipline. When you're building something meaningful, a dream, a goal, a new version of yourself, the early stages are fragile. Like a seed just planted in the soil, it's vulnerable. It can't survive too much exposure, too many opinions, too much pressure. The soul of silence protects it, giving it room to grow strong roots before anyone can pull it out. Most people lose their momentum not because they lack talent, but because they expose their vision too early to people who don't understand it. Every time they share their plans, someone's doubt seeps in. And doubt, when planted in weak soil, can kill potential before it even sprouts. Think about the most successful companies in the world. Apple doesn't announce a product when it's an idea. They announce it when it's finished, because they understand something vital. Anticipation is power and silence is leverage. Behind those locked doors and coded projects lies the quiet work that builds empires. There's no applause in the background, no validation from the crowd, only focus, obsession, and patience. We live in an age where people document everything, their plans, their progress, their struggles, their dreams. Social media has become a stage where people perform their aspirations before they've even lived them. But the problem with broadcasting your next move is that it gives you a false sense of achievement. Every time someone praises your ambition, your brain releases the same dopamine it would get from completing the goal, and that's dangerous. Because once you've felt the satisfaction of being seen, you lose the hunger that drives you to finish. You talk your way out of the work. Silence keeps you hungry. It reminds you that you still have something to prove, not to others, but to yourself. It keeps your fire burning quietly, away from the winds of distraction and judgment. When no one knows what you're working on, you're free to fail, to experiment, to grow. You don't owe anyone explanations or updates. You can take the time to get it right instead of rushing to be seen. There's a story of a man who once dreamt of building his own business. In his excitement, he told everyone. Friends congratulated him, family celebrated him, and people started asking when it would launch. The more they asked, the more pressure he felt. And when the challenges came, as they always do, he began to lose faith. Not because the dream wasn't possible, but because it no longer felt like his. It had become public property. Everyone's opinions had diluted his vision. Eventually, he gave up. Years later, he realized that what killed his dream wasn't failure. It was exposure. Contrast that with another story. A woman decided to start something too, but she told no one. She worked quietly early in the mornings and late into the nights. There were no social media posts, no conversations about what's coming, just quiet dedication. And when she finally revealed her work, it was undeniable. People didn't have to believe in her words. They saw the results. Her silence had protected her progress. Her actions spoke volumes. That's the lesson. When you let your work speak, you don't need to convince anyone. You don't have to defend your dreams because the results defend themselves. Silence isn't secrecy, it's maturity. It's understanding that growth doesn't need an audience. Not everything sacred should be shared. Every great idea has a gestation period, a season of quiet development. Just like a baby grows in the dark of the womb before entering the light of the world, your ideas need time to form unseen. If you expose them too early, they're not ready to survive the world's criticism. The world doesn't protect what it doesn't understand. That's why your dreams need you to be their guardian, patient, disciplined, and silent until they can stand on their own. Even in personal growth, the same truth applies. Don't announce that you're changing, just change. Don't declare that you're healing, just heal. Let people notice the difference on their own. The loudest transformations often come from the quietest seasons. The moments no one sees are the ones that build your character, sharpen your focus, and fortify your purpose. When you're silent, you're dangerous, not because you hide, but because you prepare. Preparation in silence creates confidence in action. The boxer doesn't brag about his training, he shows it in the ring. The student doesn't broadcast every hour of study, they reveal it with the results. The leader doesn't need to announce every move, they prove it through their impact. There's also wisdom in withholding your next move because it keeps others guessing. When you talk too much about your plans, you give people the map to your next step. And not everyone cheering for you wants you to win. Some listen just to compete, to copy, or to criticize. Silence keeps your strategy protected and your energy focused. We often confuse transparency with authenticity, but being authentic doesn't mean sharing everything. It means being true to your purpose, even when no one's watching. It means knowing that your work will speak for you louder than any post, caption or conversation ever could. The most powerful people are often the quietest ones, not because they lack words, but because they understand timing. They know when to speak and when to stay silent. Every great vision requires a season of unseen effort. The farmer doesn't run through the fields shouting about the harvest. He tills, plants, waters, and waits. The harvest always comes to those who are patient enough to work in silence. Your time in the dark isn't punishment, it's preparation. The quiet season is where you're shaped, refined, and made ready for the moment when the world finally sees what you've built. So, protect your next move. Let the world wonder what you're doing. Let your silence create curiosity, and let your results create the answers. Because when you move in silence, your impact will make the noise. There is a beauty in honesty, but there is also a wisdom in silence. We live in a world that constantly urges us to share, to open up, to be transparent. Social media celebrates vulnerability, but not everyone who listens to your pain knows how to hold it. Not everyone who hears your story deserves to carry a piece of it. There's a difference between sharing to connect and sharing to be seen. The first builds bridges, the second leaves you exposed. When we're in the middle of our struggle, our emotions are raw, our perspective clouded, we're still bleeding, still processing, still figuring out what this pain even means. And yet, in those moments, we often rush to talk about it, not because it helps, but because silence feels too heavy. We want someone to understand, to validate, to fix it. But here's the truth. When you share your wounds before they're healed, you give others the power to define your pain for you. You allow opinions, judgments, and assumptions to shape a story that's still being written. People mean well, but advice offered too early can be like salt on an open wound. They'll tell you to move on, to stay positive, to forgive, to let go. But they haven't lived your story. They haven't felt your nights of doubt or the ache behind your smile. So their words, even when kind, can feel hollow. Sometimes, the most sacred part of healing is learning to protect your process, to sit with your pain long enough to understand what it's trying to teach you before you invite others in. Vulnerability is powerful, but only when it's intentional. Sharing everything, especially before you've made sense of it, doesn't make you authentic. It makes you unguarded. Authenticity isn't about telling the world everything that happens to you. It's about being honest about who you are, even when you choose not to share. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the quiet decision to heal privately. There's a reason why the strongest people often seem reserved when it comes to their pain. They've learned that some moments are meant to be processed in solitude, not broadcast in public. Because pain shared too soon becomes a conversation, but pain shared at the right time becomes a message. The difference lies in healing. When you've done the work, when you've faced the darkness, when you've learned the lesson, then your story becomes a gift, not a plea. Think of Oprah Winfrey. For years, she carried the weight of her trauma in silence. It wasn't that she was hiding it, she was healing it. And when she finally spoke, her words carried power. Her story didn't sound like a cry for help. It sounded like a call to courage. Because by then, she had turned her wounds into wisdom. She didn't share for sympathy, she shared to serve. That's the power of timing. When you speak from a scar, you inspire. When you speak from a wound, you bleed. We often forget that silence can be sacred. In the stillness of your own struggle, something profound happens. You start to hear your own voice again. You begin to separate the truth from the noise. What's yours to carry and what you can release, that's where real growth begins. Healing isn't always about expression. Sometimes it's about reflection. It's about understanding your story so deeply that by the time you share it, it's not just about pain, it's about purpose. The people who truly grow through struggle are the ones who learn to transform it before they talk about it. They don't speak from confusion, they speak from clarity. They don't seek validation, they offer value. Their stories don't drain others, they lift them. Because healing turns your pain into perspective. And that's what gives your words weight. It's tempting to think that being open means being honest about everything all the time. But honesty doesn't require exposure. You can be genuine and still private. You can be kind and still guarded. You can be open-hearted and still selective. The key is discernment, knowing who has earned the right to hear your story. Some people are not ready to hold your truth. Some will misunderstand it, minimize it, or misuse it. That's why it's not selfish to protect your pain, it's self-respect. When you share your struggles too early, you risk turning your healing journey into someone else's conversation. But when you share from strength, your words have a different energy. They no longer come from a place of need, they come from a place of generosity. You're not looking for someone to fix you. You're offering something that might help fix the world. That shift changes everything. Your scars are proof that you survived. They're not something to hide, but they're also not something to display recklessly. Scars are sacred. They tell stories of battles fought and lessons learned. They remind you that you were stronger than the thing that tried to break you. And when you choose to share them, you give others hope that they can survive their own. But that power only exists once the wound is closed. So give yourself time. Let the storm pass before you speak about it. Let your emotions settle before you put them into words. Let the pain shape you before you try to shape it into a story. There's no rush to be understood. Healing is not a performance. It's a process. The world doesn't need your raw pain. It needs your refined wisdom. In a culture that rewards exposure, it takes courage to be silent. It takes maturity to say, not yet, because healing isn't about hiding. It's about honoring what you've been through, honoring the space it takes to heal and honoring the transformation that happens in the quiet. And when that transformation is complete, when your story has ripened with meaning, that's when sharing it becomes a gift, not just for others, but for yourself. Your story has power. Your scars have purpose. But only when you've taken the time to let them teach you. Because the most powerful stories are not told in the middle of the pain. They're told after you've found peace. And when you finally speak from that place, your words don't just describe survival, they define strength. Never share every detail of your finances or blessings, because not everyone can celebrate you without comparing themselves to you. Success in its purest form is delicate. It thrives best in environments of humility, not applause. It's easy to believe that sharing every new promotion, every new purchase, or every financial milestone is a sign of openness or gratitude. But in truth, sometimes what we call sharing is really a quiet desire for validation. We want others to see how far we've come, but not everyone who claps for you is happy for you. Some are simply keeping score. Success can be fragile when surrounded by envy. It doesn't always break from failure. It breaks from exposure. The more visible your blessings become, the more vulnerable they are to the opinions, expectations, and judgments of others. That's why there's profound wisdom in celebrating silently. Silence doesn't mean secrecy, it means security. You're not hiding your blessings, you're protecting your peace. You're choosing to let your growth speak through your consistency, not your announcements. When you share every financial detail or every success story, you unintentionally invite others into the sacred space of your progress. And once they're inside, they start measuring you, comparing your success with their struggle, your blessing with their lack. They don't always mean harm. But human nature is complex. We compare without realizing it. And comparison breeds competition where there should be contentment. What was once your joy can easily become your burden when the approval of others becomes the measure of your worth. Money, promotions, possessions, these are not the true markers of success. They're simply reflections of value created. Yet, the moment you broadcast them, they start to shape how people see you, and more dangerously, how you see yourself. Suddenly, your worth feels tied to what you own instead of who you are. You start making choices to maintain an image rather than a purpose. You feel pressured to stay ahead, not to grow. You chase applause instead of fulfillment. True wealth doesn't need applause. It needs stewardship. It's not about how much you can show. It's about how wisely you can manage. The greatest test of abundance is discretion. Can you hold your success quietly without needing others to affirm it? Can you remain grounded while the world around you changes its perception of you? Because stewardship isn't just about managing resources. It's about managing your heart. The higher you climb, the more essential humility becomes. Think about Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world. Despite his unimaginable wealth, he still lives in the same modest home he bought decades ago. That decision isn't about frugality, it's about philosophy. He understands something that many people overlook: contentment is a quiet victory. The ability to have more and still desire less is one of the greatest signs of maturity. He doesn't need to prove his success through material excess because his fulfillment isn't dependent on what others see. It's anchored in what he values, and that's the secret so many miss. The more you talk about your blessings, the more you risk diluting their meaning. Your blessings are sacred. They carry lessons meant for you first. When you start sharing every number, every detail, every milestone, you invite noise into what was meant to be a private symphony between you and your purpose. People will have opinions about how you spend, how you live, how you give. Before you know it, you're no longer living your truth. You're performing for an audience that was never meant to have a front row seat. Guard your blessings the way you guard your peace. Because in a world where people broadcast everything, every vacation, every purchase, every success, mystery has become a form of strength. You don't have to prove you're winning to be winning. The loudest lives are not always the most fulfilled ones. The happiest people are often the ones who smile quietly, work diligently, and let their results whisper the story of their progress. It's not wrong to celebrate. Celebration is beautiful. But not every victory requires a public stage. Some wins are meant to be felt, not flaunted. The world doesn't need to know every time you rise. It only needs to feel the impact of your growth through how you treat people, how you lead, how you live. Let your actions announce your progress, not your words. There's also another truth: when you share too much, you increase expectations. People start to expect your success to be consistent, flawless, upward. And the moment life takes a turn, those same eyes that once celebrated you begin to question you. What happened? Did they lose it, or are they still doing well? Suddenly, your peace depends on perception. That's why quiet progress is powerful. It gives you room to grow, to make mistakes, to evolve without the pressure of public scrutiny. Every blessing carries responsibility. The more you receive, the more disciplined you must become in how you handle it. That discipline isn't just financial, it's emotional and spiritual. It's knowing when to share and when to stay silent, when to teach from your story and when to keep parts of it sacred. Because wisdom doesn't just come from what you reveal, it also comes from what you choose not to reveal. The most successful people aren't always the ones who talk the most about their success. They're the ones who remain curious, grateful, and humble no matter how high they climb. They understand that money can buy comfort but not peace, recognition but not respect, luxury but not love. And so they protect their inner life fiercely. They don't measure themselves by their possessions but by their purpose. They don't share everything because they know not everything needs to be understood. So celebrate your blessings, but do it with grace. Be generous, but with intention. Inspire others with your journey, not your balance sheet. Share the wisdom your blessings taught you, not the numbers that came with them. The world doesn't need more people flaunting success. It needs more people modeling contentment, stewardship, and gratitude. And when you find yourself tempted to announce your next big win, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing this to inspire or to be seen? One comes from abundance, the other from insecurity. Choose the former, because true success doesn't need an audience. It simply needs purpose. And purpose, when lived quietly and authentically, will always outlast applause. The people who are truly rich are not the ones who have the most, but the ones who need the least. They are content grounded and wise enough to understand that the greatest blessings in life are not meant to be broadcast. They are meant to be lived. So share your light, not your ledger, your lessons, not your luxuries. Because in the end, it's not what the world sees that defines your success. It's what your soul knows. Our deepest fears are not just emotions we feel. They are the stories that live beneath the surface of our lives. They whisper to us in moments of uncertainty. They shape our choices, and they influence how we see the world. Fear is deeply personal. It's the most fragile part of who we are. It's the quiet truth that hides behind our confidence, our achievements, our smiles. And that's why not everyone deserves to see it. Because when you share your deepest fears with those who haven't earned your trust, you give them power over your most vulnerable self. There are people who will listen not to understand you, but to measure you. They'll remember what makes you hesitate, what makes you question yourself. And one day, consciously or unconsciously, they'll use that knowledge to remind you of your limits. Sometimes they don't even mean harm. Sometimes it's ignorance or immaturity. But the result is the same. Your courage begins to shrink in the presence of those who don't know how to protect it. That's why wisdom teaches restraint. Not silence born of fear, but silence born of discernment. Because trust must be earned, not assumed. Think about a leader, a visionary, or even a close friend you admire. The kind of person who moves through life with quiet strength. They are not fearless. They are simply selective about who they allow to see their fears. They have people in their corner who have proven their loyalty not through words, but through presence. People who stay when the applause fades. People who remind them of who they are when doubt tries to speak louder than truth. Those are the ones worthy of hearing your deepest fears, because they don't use them to define you, they use them to help you rise above them. We live in a world that celebrates openness. We're told to share everything, to be transparent, to be real. And while authenticity is powerful, it must be protected. Not everyone who asks how you're doing deserves the truth of your struggle. Not everyone who smiles at you has the capacity to carry your pain. Vulnerability is sacred, and it loses its strength when it's placed in untrustworthy hands. It's like giving someone the keys to your home. You don't hand them to a stranger just because they knocked politely. You give them to those who have proven they'll respect what's inside. In every strong person's story, there's a moment of isolation, the time they pulled back from the crowd to gather themselves, the time they stopped explaining their fears and started understanding them. The lion doesn't reveal its wounds in front of the herd because it knows weakness invites danger. It retreats into the quiet, tends to its pain, regains its strength, and only then returns, not broken, but wiser, sharper, more resilient. That's what healing in silence looks like. It's not withdrawal, it's strategy. Fear, when handled with care, becomes a teacher. But when exposed carelessly, it becomes a weapon. The wrong person can turn your confession into gossip, your vulnerability into judgment, your honesty into ammunition. And the next time you try to open up, you'll hesitate, not because you're weak, but because you learned the hard way that not everyone deserves access to your soul. That hesitation is not cynicism, it's protection, it's wisdom born of experience. Trust is not measured by how long you've known someone, but by how they've responded when you were at your most human. Did they listen without trying to fix you? Did they see your fear and still believe in your strength? Did they honor your vulnerability or exploit it? These are the questions that separate a confident from an audience. Leaders, thinkers, and dreamers understand this distinction. Even those who seem unshakable have their circle. A small group of people who see the truth behind the image and hold it with care. Because even the strongest need a place to lay down their armor. We often think of strength as the ability to stand alone. But true strength is knowing when to be silent and when to speak. And more importantly, to whom to speak. When you choose wisely who you confide in, your fears lose their power to isolate you. They become opportunities for connection, growth, and transformation. But when you share recklessly, you risk scattering your power among those who don't know what to do with it. There's a quiet dignity in guarding your inner world. It doesn't mean you're closed off or detached. It means you value yourself enough to protect what's sacred. The world doesn't need to see every part of your process. Some parts are meant to unfold in private, in prayer and reflection, in honest conversations with those who've earned the right to listen. Because when you heal privately, you return publicly with clarity, not confusion, with purpose, not pain. Imagine if every time you faced fear, you rushed to announce it. To friends, to social media, to anyone who would listen, what would that do to your confidence? You'd be handing out fragments of your fear to people who might not know how to hold it. But if you bring it instead to the few who understand you, those who have proven they can be trusted with your truth, you create an environment where your fears can evolve into wisdom. That's the difference between exposure and growth. It takes courage to be vulnerable, but it takes wisdom to be discerning. The balance of both is what builds inner peace. Some people will never understand the weight of what you carry, and that's okay. You don't owe them your truth just to prove your authenticity. Protecting your heart doesn't make you secretive, it makes you strong. The world sees strength as noise, as bold declarations and fearless faces. But real strength is often quiet. It's the ability to feel deeply, think clearly, and still choose wisely whom you allow into your most fragile spaces. So when fear rises, don't rush to silence it by sharing it with anyone who'll listen. Sit with it, learn from it. Then when you're ready, share it with those who've shown that they'll handle it with care. Because your fears are not flaws. They are the raw materials of your courage. But only in the right hands will they become something beautiful. A lion doesn't roar to announce its pain. It heals in the shadows, regains its strength, and returns to the field not to prove anything, but to lead once again, stronger, wiser, unshaken. We live in a time where speaking has become effortless. With a tap, a thought can reach thousands. With a few words, a mood can shift a crowd. Yet in this age of endless expression, we've lost touch with the quiet art of restraint. We've mistaken the ability to speak with the necessity to do so. Freedom of speech was never meant to be freedom from thought. Because while words can build bridges, they can also burn them. And sometimes what remains unsaid speaks louder than anything we could ever express. Every thought that crosses your mind doesn't need to find its way into the world. Every emotion that stirs inside you doesn't deserve an audience. There's a sacred power in holding back, in pausing long enough to let emotion settle before it becomes a statement. True wisdom is found not in constant expression, but in intentional communication. The greatest leaders, the most trusted voices, and the people who leave a lasting impact all share one common trait. They think deeply before they speak. They understand that words are not merely sounds, they're seeds. Once planted, they can grow into trust, love, or destruction. Imagine a moment when you were misunderstood, when your words came out faster than your thoughts. Maybe you were angry, frustrated, or hurt. You said something you didn't mean, and before you could take it back, it had already taken root in someone else's heart. The damage wasn't in your intention, it was in your haste. A few seconds of silence could have saved hours of regret. That pause, that small, quiet moment between thought and expression is where maturity is born. It's where wisdom whispers, wait. Social media has blurred this line completely. It has made everyone a broadcaster, but not everyone a thinker. It rewards speed over substance, reaction over reflection. We post in anger, we comment in envy, we share in haste. We've begun to live as if silence is weakness, as if every opinion must be voiced, every emotion must be validated publicly. But here's the truth. The strongest people are not those who speak the most. They are those who can master their tongue when silence serves a higher purpose. There's a reason the world's most respected individuals often speak less. They understand that words, once released, can never be retrieved. They can be forgiven but not forgotten. They weigh each statement because they know that every word carries consequence. Think of someone you deeply admire, a mentor, a leader, or a friend whose words stay with you long after they've spoken. Chances are they don't speak often. But when they do, it feels as though time slows. Their words land with weight because they're not just speaking, they're delivering something thought through, something earned through reflection. We confuse noise with influence, but influence doesn't come from volume. It comes from clarity. Speaking less doesn't mean thinking less. It means thinking more deeply. The people who make a real difference are not impulsive with their words. They pause, they analyze, they choose carefully. They don't speak to impress, they speak to impact. And in doing so, they create trust. People learn to listen to them not because they demand attention, but because they've earned it through consistency and restraint. There's also a profound peace that comes from silence. Silence gives you the space to understand yourself before you try to explain yourself. It allows emotions to settle, perspectives to shift, and truth to surface. Sometimes, in the stillness of unspoken words, we find answers that speech could never reveal. Have you ever noticed that in moments of deep reflection, walking alone, sitting quietly, watching the sunrise, clarity often arrives without conversation? That's because the mind speaks loudest in silence. When we share every thought, we dilute our wisdom. When we speak impulsively, we give away our power. But when we pause, when we think, when we hold back until our words serve a purpose, we begin to shape our character. We stop reacting and start responding. We stop trying to be heard and start trying to understand. That shift transforms how we communicate, how we lead, and how we live. It's not about suppressing your voice, it's about stewarding it. There's a difference between being silent and being wise. Silence born out of fear is weakness, but silence born out of strength is mastery. It's knowing that your thoughts have value, but timing determines their impact. The right words at the wrong time can do more harm than good. But the right words, spoken with patience, can heal, guide, and inspire. Every time you speak, you're spending a part of your reputation, your influence, your energy. So spend it wisely. Before you speak, ask yourself, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? If it fails any of those tests, maybe it doesn't deserve to be said. Imagine if every person on this planet paused for 3 seconds before responding, before posting, before reacting. How many conflicts would dissolve before they even began? How many relationships would remain intact? How many misunderstandings would never exist? Restraint is not repression, it's responsibility. It's the discipline of understanding that your voice is powerful, too powerful to be used carelessly. When you choose silence over reaction, you're not withholding expression, you're protecting peace. You're giving yourself and others the space to think, to breathe, to grow. And that kind of maturity creates trust, because people don't follow those who speak first, they follow those who speak wisely. In a world that constantly urges us to share, to comment, to post, to respond, choose the higher path, choose depth over noise, choose reflection over reaction. Speak when your words add value, not just volume, because what truly defines us is not the number of words we say, but the intention behind them. Your words are currency. Use them with precision. Use them to build, not to break. Use them to inspire, not to impress. Let your silence speak of wisdom, and let your speech carry purpose. Because in the end, it's not how much we say that defines us, it's how much of what we say truly matters. We live in a world where goodness has become a performance. Acts of kindness are filmed, uploaded, and measured by the number of likes they receive. It's as if compassion has become a currency for attention. But true kindness was never meant to be displayed. It was meant to be lived. The greatest acts of humanity rarely make headlines. They happen quietly in the still moments when no one is watching and no one is applauding. That's where real character is formed. That's where integrity breathes. When we share every good thing we do, we shift the focus from compassion to validation. We make the act about us, not about the one in need. The intention becomes tainted, even if the action looks good on the surface. It's easy to be kind when others are watching. It feeds our ego. But it takes depth of spirit to be kind in secret, to give without ever expecting a return, not even a thank you. That's the difference between charity and love. Charity can be seen. Love doesn't need to be. Think about it. The most transformative moments of your life probably didn't come from someone's public display of generosity. They came from the quiet, unexpected gestures, the teacher who believed in you when no one else did, the friend who stood by you in silence when words failed, the stranger who offered help with no expectation of reward. Those moments shaped you not because they were grand, but because they were genuine. Real kindness doesn't need to announce itself. It leaves a mark that can't be erased. There's a certain humility that grows in us when we give in secret. It reminds us that we're not the hero of every story. Sometimes we're just the helping hand, the shoulder, the quiet presence that makes a difference. When you do good without seeking recognition, you preserve the sacredness of the act. You protect its purity, because the moment you seek to be seen for your kindness, it becomes less about the kindness itself and more about the image you want to project. Mother Teresa once said, "If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish motives. Be kind anyway." Those words carry immense truth. She understood that purity of heart is often misunderstood in a world obsessed with appearances. People might question your motives. They might think you're trying to gain something from your good deeds, but their misunderstanding is not your burden to carry. The true reward of kindness is internal. It's the peace you feel when you've done the right thing, even if no one ever knows. Imagine a world where people acted from that place of quiet sincerity, where goodness wasn't about recognition but about responsibility, where helping someone wasn't followed by a photo or a post, but by a moment of gratitude to simply be in a position to help. The energy of such a world would be different. It would be lighter, more authentic, more connected. Because when you give silently, you remind yourself that the world doesn't revolve around you. It flows through you. You become a vessel of grace, not the source of it. There's also a deeper wisdom in remaining unseen when you do good. The moment you take your act of kindness public, you open it to judgment, comparison, and critique. Someone will always have an opinion. Someone will always say it wasn't enough or it wasn't done the right way. But when you give quietly, your kindness is protected from the noise. It remains between you, your conscience, and the universe. And that's where it gains its real power, uncontaminated by ego, untouched by opinion. We often underestimate how powerful small, hidden acts can be. A smile offered to someone having a hard day, a bill quietly paid for a struggling friend, a note of encouragement slipped under a door. These moments ripple outward, far beyond what we can see. The one you help today might find strength to help another tomorrow. The chain of kindness continues, invisible but unstoppable. That's how goodness sustains itself. Not through exposure, but through expansion. When you start giving silently, something shifts inside you. You begin to realize that your worth isn't tied to what people think of you, but to what you give to the world without needing anything back. Your ego begins to dissolve, and your heart becomes lighter. You stop seeking applause and you start seeking alignment with your values, your purpose, your humanity. You begin to live not for the approval of others, but for the quiet approval of your own soul. And here's the beautiful paradox: the quieter your kindness, the louder its impact. People may not see who helped them, but they will feel that someone cared. They may not remember your name, but they'll remember how you made them feel. They may never know who was behind the gesture, but they'll carry its warmth long after the moment has passed. That's the real reward, not being known, but being felt. Think of the sun. It doesn't announce every sunrise. It doesn't demand gratitude for every ray of light it gives. It simply shines every day, giving warmth and life without recognition. That's the spirit of true kindness, to give naturally, freely, and without condition. When you live like that, your life itself becomes a form of light. You stop chasing validation because you've already found fulfillment. In the end, goodness is not about how much the world sees, but how deeply it's felt by those you touch. It's not about the noise you make, but the peace you create. When you give in silence, you connect to something greater than yourself, a higher sense of purpose that doesn't need to be witnessed to be real. Because the moment you let go of the need to be seen for doing good, you start doing good for the right reason. The world doesn't need more people performing kindness. It needs more people embodying it. It needs quiet givers, unseen helpers, humble hearts who understand that the most powerful gestures are often the simplest ones. And when we all begin to live that way, when we stop measuring our goodness by visibility and start measuring it by sincerity, we not only change lives, we transform the very essence of what it means to be human. That is the beauty of doing good unseen. It's not about recognition, it's about revelation. The revelation of who you truly are when no one is watching. Faith is one of the most intimate parts of our existence. It's the quiet voice that speaks to us when no one else can. It's the stillness that steadies us when life shakes the ground beneath our feet. And yet, in today's world, where everything is shared, recorded, and broadcasted, we're often tempted to turn even our faith into something for public display, to prove to others that we're spiritual, enlightened, or close to God. But real faith was never meant to be a performance. It's not about how eloquently you can speak about it or how often you share it online. It's about what happens in the silence, in those moments when it's just you and the unseen presence that gives your life meaning. When we begin to share too much about our spiritual life, we risk losing the sacredness that makes it powerful. Think about the most meaningful relationships in your life. The ones that truly matter aren't defined by how much you tell the world about them, but by the quiet understanding shared between you and that person. You don't need to prove love that's real. You live it, you protect it, you nurture it. The same is true with faith. It doesn't demand an audience. It asks for authenticity. It doesn't need applause, it needs attention. The depth of your spiritual life is something only you and your Creator can truly understand. No one else walks your exact path. No one else knows the battles fought in the privacy of your soul, the questions that keep you awake, or the gratitude that fills your heart when life gives you a glimpse of grace. That inner world is sacred ground. When you expose it to the noise of the world, it becomes vulnerable to judgment, misunderstanding, and even manipulation. What was once pure can easily become diluted by the opinions of others who cannot possibly see what you see or feel what you feel. There's a quiet strength that comes from keeping your faith private. It's the strength of the person who prays not to be seen, but to be centered. It's the peace of someone who meditates not for show, but for connection. It's the humility of the soul that knows it doesn't need validation because it already has belonging. When faith becomes a public performance, it risks becoming an act of ego rather than devotion. But when it remains personal, it becomes the anchor of your character, something unshakable even when everything around you falls apart. The world is full of debates about what's right, what's wrong, who's holy, and who's not. But true peace is rarely found in argument. It's found in quiet devotion. You don't have to convince anyone of what you believe for your faith to be real. The most powerful beliefs are lived, not declared. They show up in how you treat people, how you forgive, how you persevere, and how you choose to love when it's hardest to do so. That's the kind of spirituality that doesn't need to be announced. It's visible in the way you live. Imagine two people walking through a storm. One carries a loudspeaker, announcing every step, declaring their courage and demanding recognition. The other walks quietly, holding their faith close, trusting each step to the unseen. When the storm passes, only one will emerge with their peace intact, the one who didn't need to prove it to anyone. Faith is like that. The more you try to show it off, the more fragile it becomes. But when you protect it, it grows stronger in silence. Many people confuse spirituality with image, as if the depth of faith could be measured by rituals, symbols, or public declarations. But true spirituality is invisible to the human eye. It's not found in words, it's found in alignment, when your actions, values, and purpose move in harmony. It's when you can look in the mirror and know that your outer life reflects your inner truth. And that kind of alignment only happens when your faith is personal, when it's not being shaped by the expectations of others, but by the quiet guidance of your soul. There's a reason the most transformative moments of faith often happen in solitude. It's in the silence of prayer, the stillness of meditation, or the raw honesty of reflection that we find clarity. We discover not what we're supposed to believe, but what we truly believe. We realize that spirituality isn't about escaping the world. It's about engaging with it from a place of peace and purpose. And that peace can only come when your connection to the divine is authentic and undisturbed by performance. Protecting your spiritual journey doesn't mean hiding it out of fear or shame. It means honoring it as something sacred, something that doesn't need to be explained, defended, or displayed. It's like protecting a flame from the wind. The more you shield it, the brighter it burns. The more you expose it to the elements, the easier it is for that flame to flicker out. When you hold your faith close, it gives you light even in the darkest moments. It becomes your compass, guiding you not with noise, but with quiet certainty. You see, it's not about appearing holy, it's about being whole. Holiness can be faked, but wholeness cannot. Wholeness means your beliefs, your actions, and your heart are in sync. It means your faith doesn't just live in your words, it lives in your choices, in your integrity, in the way you show up for others. When you're whole, you don't need to prove your spirituality because it radiates through you naturally. It's seen in the calmness of your spirit, the kindness in your tone, and the steadiness of your heart when life tests your limits. And maybe that's what true spirituality has always been about, not being seen as someone who has all the answers, but being someone who listens deeply, not preaching, but practicing, not displaying devotion, but living with compassion. The people who inspire us the most spiritually are often the ones who say the least about it. They move through the world quietly, yet leave a trail of peace wherever they go. In a world obsessed with visibility, there is something profoundly powerful about invisibility, about knowing that the most sacred parts of your life don't need an audience to have meaning. When you stop sharing every layer of your spiritual life, you create space for depth. You create room for mystery, for intimacy, for transformation. And in that sacred quiet, you begin to hear what truly matters, the whisper of your own soul and the guidance of something greater than yourself. The world may never understand the depth of your faith, and that's okay. It's not meant to. What matters is that you understand it, that you protect it, and that you let it shape you from the inside out. Because when your inner life is strong, your outer life becomes steady. When your spirit is whole, your steps are sure. And when your connection to the divine is protected, no storm, no doubt, and no criticism can take it from you. Not every fight needs an audience. Not every battle deserves a stage. Some of the greatest victories in life are born in silence, in the lonely hours when the world is asleep and you are left face to face with your own thoughts. These are the moments that define who we are, the unseen struggles that sculpt the character behind the curtain. Because real strength isn't proven by how loudly you fight, but by how deeply you endure. We live in a time where people feel compelled to announce everything, every challenge, every setback, every fight. It's almost as if we've been conditioned to believe that unless our pain is visible, it doesn't matter. But that's the illusion. When you make every battle public, you give your energy away, you allow others, their opinions, their sympathy, their judgment to shape your journey. You start fighting for validation instead of victory. The energy that could have been used to heal, to rebuild, to grow, gets scattered in the noise of trying to be understood. There's immense power and restraint in choosing silence over announcement, focus over exposure. The battles that truly change us happen within the war between fear and faith, doubt and conviction, anger and forgiveness. These wars don't need witnesses, they need commitment. They need courage. The most transformative fights aren't the ones you win in front of people. They're the ones you survive when no one knows what you're going through. Think about Nelson Mandela. 27 years of captivity. 27 years of silence, patience, and perseverance. He didn't post about his suffering. He didn't seek attention for his pain. He used that silence to build something greater inside himself. Wisdom, forgiveness, vision. When he finally walked out of that prison, he didn't come out broken. He came out prepared to lead, to unite, to inspire. His silence was not weakness. It was strategy. His quiet endurance gave birth to one of the loudest triumphs in history. You see, not every battle needs to be declared because not every battle is meant to be shared. Some are meant to teach you something personal about who you are, what you value, and how strong you really can be. When you keep some fights private, you're not hiding, you're protecting your growth. You're building resilience in sacred space. You're allowing your spirit to strengthen away from the chaos of opinion. The truth is, people can only see the surface of your struggle. They don't know the context, the complexity, or the cost of your journey. That's why sharing every battle can be dangerous, because others might misunderstand it, minimize it, or misguide you. When you fight silently, you free yourself from that distortion. You get to listen to your own voice, your own intuition, and the quiet wisdom that only emerges in solitude. The world glorifies visibility, but the soul grows in invisibility. Growth happens in the shadows, where the roots take hold before the tree breaks the soil. Just like a seed must fight through darkness before it ever sees the sun, your battles in private prepare you for your public victories. If you try to expose them too early, you risk uprooting your own progress. Every successful person you admire has fought unseen wars. The entrepreneur who appears confident on stage once battled self-doubt in the dark. The leader who commands respect once faced moments of paralyzing fear. The artist who inspires millions once wrestled with insecurity and silence. Their greatness didn't come from exposure, it came from endurance. They learned to win the small, quiet battles no one else saw. Sometimes silence is not about secrecy, it's about sanctity. Your mind needs quiet to process, your heart needs space to heal, and your purpose needs stillness to clarify. If you announce your fight too early, you invite noise into a space that needs peace. You open the door for distraction when what you really need is focus. The greatest warriors know when to fight in the open and when to fight within. They understand that not every battle is meant for display. There's also something sacred about surprise. When you fight quietly, your victory becomes undeniable because no one saw it coming. You don't have to defend your progress or explain your process. Your results will do that for you. There's a dignity in rising silently and letting success speak. You become unstoppable because no one knew when or where to attack. You've built your strength in hidden places, and hidden strength cannot be destroyed. In our search for connection, we sometimes forget the value of privacy. We forget that it's okay to have sacred spaces within our hearts where no one else enters. You don't owe the world an explanation for every struggle. You don't have to make your pain public to make it real. The measure of your courage isn't how many people know what you're facing. It's how you choose to face it even when no one's watching. And let's be honest, not every fight needs to be fought. Some battles only exist to drain you. The moment you stop reacting to every provocation, every criticism, every distraction, you reclaim your power. Choosing your battles wisely is an act of maturity. It's understanding that peace is often more powerful than proof, and silence can be louder than argument. When you stop giving energy to what drains you, you start fueling what drives you. That's the shift. You begin to conserve your strength for what truly matters. You begin to rise above rather than react. Every quiet victory becomes a layer of armor that protects your peace. You learn that real power doesn't need to prove itself. It simply is. There's a deep, almost spiritual strength that comes from mastering the art of invisible battles. It's the calm confidence of someone who's been through the fire and no longer needs to announce it. It's the grace of someone who knows that not all strength roars, some whispers, some just stands tall, steady, unshaken. So when you find yourself in a fight, whether it's with doubt, fear, loss, or uncertainty, remember this: you don't have to broadcast it. Let your silence be your strategy. Let your perseverance be your declaration, because when the dust settles and you rise quietly, powerfully, completely, the world will see the result and they'll wonder how you did it. That's the beauty of silent battles. They don't just build victory, they build you. They shape the kind of person who doesn't need recognition to stay resilient, who doesn't need applause to stay faithful. Your quiet battles are sacred training grounds for the destiny that awaits you. They teach you patience, humility, and the unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you've already fought and won within. And when your moment comes, when your victory finally stands in the light, it will carry a power no one can deny, because it was forged in silence, strengthened in solitude, and revealed only when it was ready. That is the strength of inner victory. That is what makes you unstoppable. The world teaches us to share everything, but wisdom teaches us to guard what is sacred. What you don't share says more about your character than what you do, because silence isn't secrecy, it's strength. Protect your dreams, guard your heart, nurture your peace, and remember, the most powerful lives are not the ones most seen, but the ones most centered.